Hello and welcome back to our How to Paint series of tutorials. If you happen to join the last few parts, you'll know that we've been working on our Dark Angels Deathwing Knight, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right in here for the sake of time with our Retributor armor. It's more of a kind of gold. If you've noticed the kind of more brassy parts, that is Balthazar gold. So if you want to use that, you can, just for kind of a design aspect, more pleasing to me. We're going to be doing a different color here, and we're going to go ahead and do, I believe it's called a Crozius, his little staff here, and we're going to go right into it, getting a nice thin layer. Make sure you have some water mixed in with your paint, especially being more metallic. It's very easy to kind of get very thick very quickly, and we want to avoid that as best as possible here. And you'll have to forgive the wonky angles. We're coming at this as a right-hander, doing the left-hand side. It always gets very tricky. And we'll just see if we can't get this in kind of two very quick little layers here. I think we're going to go ahead and do the entire staff gold, and if we don't like it, we can go back over. I think the other kind of color scheme I might try, if that doesn't work out well, is kind of gold for the head of the Crozius here, and then the rest I might do a nice Leadbelcher silver. But we'll try this first, and we'll see if we enjoy it. If not, feel free to leave a comment, right, saying how terrible it is. I promise we'll make a whole new video just to go back and fix it. Actually, it would help if our figure here stayed in focus, right? That'd be perfect. As always, my camera is kind of janky. It's literally just my iPhone. It's kind of the best I can do on the budget I have at the moment. And if you happen to have any recommendations for kind of a cheap, nice camera that we can continue this series with, I am open to all recommendations. Nothing too expensive, nothing too crazy. And in that same vein of thought, I do have a Patreon. I've had a little bit of difficulty getting it back up. It was deemed to be fraudulent, or suspicious rather was the exact word. Literally the day after I made it, Patreon sent me an email saying that it was suspicious and that they were going to temporarily suspend it while they reviewed it. About 5 minutes later, they sent me another email saying that it was going to be deactivated. So I thought, man, that's kind of weird. So I emailed them, because they had a little link on there. You can ask for customer support. And I said, hey, what's up with this? And all they said back was, oh, we're sorry. We'll reactivate it for you. Didn't explain any of it. Didn't say why it was tagged or flagged, anything. Just said sorry and put it back up. So if you want to see kind of more videos more often and some better equipment, as well as some more minis, because of course minis are very expensive, even the 3D printing ones. You have to buy resin and of course the files and everything. So if you like what I do and you want to see more, or maybe you have a specific model in mind and you'd like me to paint that, maybe consider joining my Patreon. Of course, there's no obligation to. I'm not bothered either way. It's just a way of kind of getting more content to you guys more often. And we're going to be continuing with our gold here. Again, we want nice thin layers. Just a little bit of water mixed in will do wonders for you. And the more you kind of paint, because I know I say it a lot, and it probably doesn't mean anything to you. For the longest time, I didn't understand what thin layers meant. The more you kind of do it, the easier it is to understand. I know that's kind of counterintuitive, but I swear it's a real thing, right? It's like riding a bike. You can tell someone how to do it over and over, but they won't know how to do it until they actually do it themselves. So, don't be scared to just jump right in and go to town on your model. Worst case scenario, you just redo it, right? As long as you're not doing anything that will harm your model, as in, melting it with IPA that's too strong or the wrong type of solvent, there's really no harm you can do. And there's no such thing as, well, there is, but for the most part, there's no such thing as too thin of a layer. There is, however, a thing as too thick. So always do more water if in doubt. And we're just about wrapping this up. We'll do just one quick little pass over on the inside here. You just want to make sure you kind of get all the little nooks and crannies. Of course, I am famously bad at missing things, so I want to make sure we get this on the first try. And today I'm going to try to finish up kind of all the base layers we've been working on. And depending on how much time we have left when we're finished with that, we might go ahead and do the base of our model. Of course, it's not painted, it's all 3D printed, so we have to do the whole thing, right? And if we're really lucky, we can start with some washes. And I doubt we'll be fast enough for it, but we might be able to knock this all out in just one video. If it takes too long, we'll split it up into two, but I'm feeling optimistic, right? So there's our Crozius. We'll come back and do another pass around if it's not great when it's dried. So now we're going to move on to some more of the kind of smaller details that we haven't touched on yet. And we're going to close up if I can avoid peeking the mic. All right, we managed it. I have my recording software pulled up on the screen ahead of me, so I'm able to kind of keep an eye on that. We're going to go ahead and open up our lead belcher. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I use lead belcher pretty liberally. It's kind of my favorite silver. There's also, I believe it's called Stormhost silver. Just whatever you're comfortable with using. Me personally, this is just what I have to hand, so it's what I'm going to use. And as always, actually we'll get a little bit less on our brush there. Nice thin layer, and we're going to go ahead and apply it to this kind of back vent plate. I feel like it should be silver. And we'll get pretty decent little coverage here on the first go around. Be careful not to get it anywhere you don't want it. As always, you can clean it up, but darker layers going onto lighter layers is more of a challenge to fix than lighter layers going onto darker layers. And now we get into the trickier section here of the smaller vent. And you can already see we're making a bit of a mess with it. That's okay. Once we apply a wash, it probably won't be noticeable, but we'll probably fix it up anyway in just a moment. And then this very small little vent right above. Now I'm not sure what all these little beeps and boops back here are meant to be. I don't know if they're similar to kind of the exhaust ports you'd see with kind of the normal terminators. But we'll go ahead and make them silver too, because why not, right? Maybe they're meant to be lights, and maybe you want to kind of paint them accordingly. But in my world, in my imagination, they're just kind of little metallic bobbins, right? Nothing too crazy. And now we have one little bit more that we're probably going to do silver here, and that's going to be these almost pipes. They look like kind of hydraulic lines. And so just a tiny bit of silver back onto our palette, because the rest has dried up, because I don't do that much on the palette at the same time. And using the back of our brush, luckily ours has a curve in it, so it makes it a little bit easier. Please don't make fun. The best brushes sometimes have curves. Sometimes even the biggest brushes have curves. It's okay. As long as it's not bent at a 90-degree angle, right? Then that's when you have to be concerned. And we will just do a sleek little job here, as well as we can. And we're going back with the crazy angles again to get the underside here. Making sure we manage to get this on camera as best as I'm able. And nothing too fancy, just kind of getting a solid coverage as good as we're able. And we'll do the same thing with the other side. Again, back of our brush. And some of the details tend to kind of mix in when you 3D print your models. Of course, depending on your printer and the files themselves that you're using. So, you know, nothing beats the good old GW models. your classic Space Marines. However, they are very expensive. So this is a good alternative, right? If you're looking to save money, I highly recommend you look into 3D printing. It is kind of a headache in its own right. I will warn you there. So don't think it's kind of the end all be all, solve all your problems. And try not to peek the microphone again as we close our paint pot. We're gonna go ahead and jump to our next color. Now, if you've been watching, you'll know that our armor layer has been Xandri Dust followed with this Rakarth Flesh. And it's given us a good color, especially I think once we get some Agrax Earthshade over it, it'll give us the color we really want. But for the skin tone, for his little face there, we're gonna go ahead with some Flayed One Flesh, just to kind of mix things up. It's more of a yellowish kind of tan as compared to the Rakarth Flesh. So I'm hoping this gives us kind of a better skin tone. And if not, we'll just toss some old liquid talent on there, right? Nothing a little bit of Nuln Oil and Agrax Earthshade won't fix. And we'll actually just get a little bit more on our brush. I'm sure it's a little bit out of focus, but I'm trying to do better with getting the palette on our kind of view as well. And you have to forgive me if it's not too great to see. I'm getting very close to my face here as I try to paint this on. I just don't want to get it on the hood. That's the kind of important thing here. Going some wacky angles again. I do apologize. Sometimes it must be done. You know, I haven't really spoken about why I like Dark Angels so much, I don't think, which is pretty crazy considering I've done, well, this would be my second series on how to paint them. If you have followed the Horus Heresy lore a little bit, or maybe you haven't and you're not familiar, that's okay. Dark Angels were kind of they're the first Legion, right? Which automatically makes them cool in their own right. They are somewhat comparable to the Space Wolves. The Space Wolves you would send out if a Legion is misbehaving, i.e. Magnus and his 1,000 Sons, right? But they're a little bit more than that. You send the Wolves when there's something to be solved, and you just want to kind of beat a Legion into submission. However, you send the Dark Angels when you want to erase a problem, right? Just wipe it from the history books. And that's what I really love about the Dark Angels. They use the Dark Age of technology weapons more often than most. I think they are the only ones who are really, well, at least in the Heresy, they were kind of the only ones really permitted to use it by the Emperor. I'm sure the other kind of chapters did it, you know, in their own way, in secret. But these guys are basically like the Emperor's hitmen, right? And that kind of makes them their own little level of cool, especially in a kind of world where, you know, Space Marines are like the top dogs, right? To be the ones who lead all of the alphas, that's pretty wild. And I love that about them. I also love kind of the Caliban-based Dark Angels in their own right. They were more kind of chivalrous. They follow like the Bretonia thing. If you're into Warhammer Fantasy, they're kind of all knights who you know have their own little code of honor, and that's pretty cool in its own right. I really like the first and second Horus Heresy Dark Angel book. I think it really delves into some pretty interesting stories. And I gotta say, I'm not sure because I don't want to spoil myself, but I really hope that Zariel kind of makes a comeback in the further novels. I'm on like book 15 of the Horus Heresy, and I don't know where it goes from there, right? Like I know the beginning and I know the end. Spoilers, you know, Horus does a bad thing. But I don't really know what all goes on in between, and that's kind of been the fun of reading the series, is learning all the little stories. I'm not a Warhammer vet by any means. I've been in the hobby for like a year and a half now, so I've got very many things to learn, and every step of the way it's just been a joy. I highly recommend reading the books if you haven't looked into it. It's an absolute blast, I assure you. And now that we've officially finished the Crozius there, again, that's what I think it's called. Feel free to debate me on that. I just finished the Word Bearers novel, so I'm getting a little bit more familiar with the kind of religious iconography. We're going to move on to these little, almost like the, actually, I don't know what you call these. They have like the like smoke that come out. I think they're called like sensor bearers, something like that. I've read the word before, I've just never really used it in a sentence, right? Spelling bee style. But trust me, I know what they're called. I just can't think of the name of it. And we're gonna go ahead and finish with our gold here, just painting up some more minor details. As always, thin layers, I cannot stress that enough. You will be thanking yourself by the end of the day. It'll save you tons of headache. And we want to be careful not to get it anywhere on our lovely green cloak there. Now off camera, I have gone over it with a couple more layers just to kind of get more of a unified shade of green. It was looking a little bit patchy beforehand, and I wanted to rectify that kind of as best as I can. So just a couple more layers. You know, that'll usually solve any of your problems, right? Just do one more layer. But I think overall it's looking pretty good. We'll toss some non-oil on it maybe, and it'll look even better, right? I think there's one of these in the front as well. Yes, there is. Now I did clean up the emblems there a little bit. We're still not going to write anything on that little shoulder pad for now. Maybe we'll come back in a later update and we'll do that as like a touch-up video. But for right now, I'm not really comfortable with my penmanship skills, and I really don't want to ruin a model that is coming along pretty well, honestly. So we're going to skip on it for now. We're also going to do this little talisman kind of emblem thing on his loincloth here. Talberd loincloth, whatever you want to call this. And coming up, I think we will also do his belt. We'll do that a nice shade of dryad? Yeah, dryad bark brown. If I can find it on my desk here. There we are. We'll toss that in our growing pile of paints. And very quickly, we'll just do one little pass over with this gold while we have it, and just make sure we fully get this model where we want it before we move on to the next paint. And we'll be very careful here. It's very tricky with everything being so close together. Smaller brushes help. Sometimes I find that even bigger brushes are useful, as long as you just go back and kind of fill in what you messed up. They are easier to kind of control. I find they make me less nervous, so I shake less. A pro tip, again, if you haven't caught any of the other videos for some reason, you know, kind of keep your hands together, your palms of your hands as much as possible. It will help with your steadiness. Also kind of try to keep, I can't show it, but try to keep your arms kind of against the base of your desk or your table or whatever you're painting on. It really helps with the overall shakiness of your hands. Also helps with your brush control a little bit, and just kind of keeping your strokes in the right place. And we're going to be moving on to our corn red here. I think that's what we were using last time. We also have Mephiston red if we want to do a shade brighter, but I think we're okay for now. And we're going to be throwing this on the shield, actually. Let's get a little bit of water off of our brush there. And a lot more than that. We'll be using a lot of this corn red, actually. Make sure we don't have too much on our brush. And as always, using the back of our brush here, because it is a kind of raised section. If I could find a comfy angle to do it at. The paint handle's actually kind of getting in my way now. We just want to take care of this sword emblem, and we will do the ones next to it as well, just kind of as best we can. Press lightly. You want to make sure you don't get it running off of the raised edges. And of course I just missed entirely, and we did it anyway. Don't worry too much about that. We can go in and fix it over in just a moment. And this is actually coming out pretty well so far. Normally when I do this, it's a mess, and I have to go back over almost the entire thing, but so far we've avoided that. And here's where we can't really use the curve. It's just doing this kind of side of the hilt here. And we'll have to go in with a little cleanup job afterwards, but that is fine. Cross that bridge when we get there, right? There we go. It's a kind of solid first layer. Clean up our brush a little bit. As always, take a little bit of water off, and we'll go right back into finishing up these swords. And the nice thing about using nice thin layers as well is that by the time you're pretty much finished with one part of your model, it's almost instantly dry. So you're almost able to just do another layer straight after it without waiting too long. But for the sake of kind of taking care of everything at once here, we'll move on to the next one, and we'll just go back over where we need to once we're finished. And this model has actually been kind of one of the harder ones that I've done recently. Not only am I not familiar with this paint scheme, it's just got a lot of kind of wacky details and, you know, odd angles that we're dealing with. And, you know, I don't mind a challenge. It's just kind of taken me a little bit longer, right? But as long as you guys are happy to watch, I am happy to paint. So we'll keep on trucking. Get a little bit more paint on our brush. Thankfully it's still dry, or sorry, it's still wet on our palette. It's two totally different things. And we might have to get just a little bit more because this is drying very quickly. That's okay. A little bit more water in our brush, not too much, and we'll mix it in with some more of our paint. As always, you want to find a nice balance between water and paint. For me, it's a little bit easier to do. For you, if you're starting out, it's going to take you quite a while, and that's okay. It's all just part of the learning process, and don't be scared to kind of experiment. Sometimes you can get some kind of intended effects when you use more or less paint. If you want to do kind of like a shade, maybe you don't want to do a full layer. Maybe you want your paint really thin, and you'll just want kind of a purposefully patchy layer. That's fine. You know, I've done that quite a few times. It works quite well if you want the underside to kind of shine through a little bit. So don't be afraid to mess around with it. You know, there's nothing wrong with experimentation. That's how you kind of grow as an artist. And I'm doing that a bit myself now with this model, actually. So, you know, we're all learning in our own right. I'm learning the Deathwing paint scheme. This is new to me, haven't done it before, and so far I'm enjoying it. It's not quite as easy as just slapping some Cantor blue on a marine and calling them done, but it's fun nonetheless. And if I can just get that tiny little part there we are. I feel like sometimes I'm just brushing over a model and it's doing nothing. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to describe. Like, I can feel it making contact, but it's just like here. It's just doing the tiniest amount for all this effort. That's okay. Sometimes that's what we want, all right? And while we're here, and we'll already have to go back over that tan anyway, I don't really mind messing it up some more. So we're gonna go in with our, if I can close this silently. There we go. Where did it go? Let's do some more, let's do Retributor armor, words. I feel like that might be fun, right? Maybe it'll ruin it. Maybe it'll make it interesting. I'm not really sure yet. We'll find out. Yeah, let's try it. This whole model has just been kind of, you know, try it and see what happens. So we're gonna keep on that track. And we're gonna make sure we get a good amount of paint on the back of our brush here. If I can get a solid angle. This thing has just been doing 360s. I fully apologize, but sometimes it's what you have to do just to find a way to be comfortable. And we will do these chains to the best of our ability. Nothing too crazy. Just very lightly press your brush down on the back or on the edge if you don't happen to have a curve on your brush. Maybe you take care of your brushes much better than I do, and that's fine. Just use the kind of edge of your brush lower down from the tip. Either way, it should work just fine for you. And we'll get a little bit more gold on there. And we will go on the other side. Just working our way down as best we can. And that about wraps it up for that. I think actually we'll do this little crossbar in the middle too, right? Just to kind of connect everything up, give it some unity. And we'll even fill in the middle of these. You can keep that bronze if you want, but I feel like it would look just a little bit better if we did the insides of it just all gold. But hey, you know, it's your model. You're allowed to do whatever you want. As long as the almighty James Workshop himself doesn't show up at your door, you should be fine. And for right now, we're going to go ahead and kind of call that done. We will do kind of the base and the washes and everything next time. I'll do a little bit of a cleanup job kind of on the things that we've done already, just for the sake of time. And also, I will probably do this in the next video, but I might do it off camera. The belt there, nothing crazy. I'm just gonna do a dryad bark, if I can find it again. Right in the middle there. It's just a standard brown. You can do it lighter brown, you can do it darker brown. It doesn't matter. Just use a brown, right? If you want, or maybe keep it tan or something. I don't know. It's your personal choice. Either way, that pretty much sums it up for now. If you guys enjoyed this and you want to see more of it, I do have my Patreon. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but feel free to subscribe to that. The minimum monthly is like $1 a month, and that would help me tremendously. Everything donated to that helps me just get more models out quicker and more videos for you guys. So if you enjoy this and you want to see more, that's it. The pretty great way to get more. If not, always feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Anything that you want to see or any comments or critiques you have, I would love to hear. Feel free to just leave it below. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.